Okey,
Nanti
rasanya dah.
next time saya minta orang lain pula.
Okey, boleh. Saya dah record tu.
Tak dengar sangatlah.
Saya dah record.
Okay. Alright. Okay. Okay. In order for us to learn about biosignals, you must have at least some basic knowledge of body lah, human body itself. So, despite of complexity of the human body, to simplify things, it is easier if you learn about the human body in terms of its organizations. So, the human body is actually organized in several levels, and scientists have identified basically there are 4 levels. Okay, which to make up a full functional human, actually it starts with cellular level, which is the basic unit of life. The cells group together to produce tissues, which is clusters of cells performing similar function. And then the tissue group together to make up organs. So you have organs systems. And when everything work as a unit, as a dynamic system, you produce a whole human body lah. And to understand how human body works, we can analyze the organ systems. So the organ systems in human body, there are 11 organ systems, and these organ systems are actually interact with each other to maintain homeostasis. So what is homeostasis? Homeostasis is a phenomena whereby you will maintain the internal body despite of changes in the external of the body. So actually the word homeostasis, home is your home lah, yeah, like stasis is static. So you try to maintain comfort because you recall you are comfortable at home, right? So homeostasis is maintaining internal balance despite of changes in the outside. So but to maintain homeostasis, we have certain limit lah. We have a range of allowable. For example, you want to maintain your body temperature. You have you can allow a range of healthy body temperature, for example. So if beyond that, then you need to do some action to compensate for the imbalance. Okay, so the definition of homeostasis is the ability to maintain a relatively constant internal environment. The conditions of the internal environment which are regulated include the temperature, the volume, fluid volume, blood volume, and the composition of the body structure, the cells, the tissues, and so on. Okay, to maintain homeostasis, we have negative feedback, which is and this negative feedback is a regulated variable. When a variable is decreased, the output will be opposite to the input. And this system responds to make it increase or vice versa, and it tends to be a self-correcting action. So for example, sweating. This example is actually body temperature maintenance, where you have in the body there is integrating center, thermoregulatory, So you have to maintain body temperature, safe body temperature, 37. So you allow 1 degree above and below. So if it is too cold, it's not safe for the body. So you need to increase the temperature. So in order to increase the temperature, you have a mechanism to increase it. If the temperature is too high, more than 37, you become unhealthy, you have fever. So you need to reduce the body temperature. So there are mechanisms to lower the body temperature. And most of the time, the action to achieve the negative feedback can be assisted by a positive feedback system. For example, and the characteristic of positive feedback, the output causes a rapid change in the variable. For example, you have during fever, for example, during problematic situations, there is a tendency you exaggerate. For example, when you have high temperature and the body become increasing the temperature itself, which is not good. To correct that one, to lower the body temperature, you sweat, for example. Sweating will reduce the temperature. And the process of sweating, the body will sense the skin is having sweat. Then the skin will produce more sweat. So the additional sweat is actually the rapid change. Until the temperature drops, then the positive feedback will switch off. So normally positive feedback is always present in a negative feedback system. The positive feedback is actually a switching action. In this example, positive feedback shows a pituitary gland in the body, production of estrogen. So in the ovaries, this is for female reproductive system. The presence of estrogen will increase more secretion of the estrogen organs. This is important, such as during menstruation, so that you can have your menstrual cycle. So, but when it achieve the target, it will stop. So positive feedback and negative feedback, both are needed. The only thing is that negative feedback happens most of the time. However, positive feedback only happens sometimes when there is a need to maintain something. Okay, now we move on to the 11 organ systems. Okay, we have nervous system. Nervous system is actually the controller of the body actions, where we have all organ systems. So the nervous system is actually comprises of the brain and the spinal cord, because it is the controller of the body system. Okay, then we have respiratory system, integumentary system, digestive system, excretory system. Excretory is for eliminating waste. Okay, and then we have skeletal systems, muscular system, circulatory systems, endocrine system, reproductive system, and lymphatic systems. Some textbooks elaborate more than, sometimes it says 11, 12, but mostly described as a human body comprises of 11 systems. Okay, now we move on. I will do a touch base. I think students who have taken science in high schools, you have learned about the body system. But of course, it's not in deep. You just touch on the basics of the body systems. So the nervous system, the purpose is to coordinate the body's response to change in its internal and external environment. The major organ of the nervous system is the brain and the spinal cords and the nerves. The nerves are actually if you compare with your electrical circuit, the nerve acts like wiring system that connects the brain to the muscles, to the system target organs. Okay, the brain is actually to control the the brain acts as the control center of the body, where all processes are relayed through the brain. It consists of the cerebrum and cerebellum. Cerebrum is actually controls the senses and movement of the body, motor control and sensory action. Whereas the cerebellum is more for motor controls, it's more for balancing, so that you can stand, you don't fall to the back or suddenly stumble. So the cerebellum is the center for balancing. Okay, the spinal cord sends instructions from the brain to the rest of the body and vice versa. So spinal cord is like pathway. And within the spinal cord, you will have collection of nerves, where the nerves are actually conduct impulse or the electric signals within the body that sends data, communication data from the brain to the target organs, to the muscles, and target organs mostly are muscles because muscle and sensor. So sensors at the end of your skin, your finger, your foot, you have many sensors all around the body, input signals to the brain, conducted in terms of electric signals. Okay, and from the brain, actions to be done, send back to the target organs near the sensor. So the pathway of the information from sensor to the controller, from the controller to the motor means the target organ, is through nerves. So the nerves do not have same nerve. Like if you compare with your electric wire, you can simply change polarity of the wire. Then you can use the same wire movement from left to right, right to left. But for your nerves, no. You only use specific nerve towards the brain, sending information towards the brain, and you are sending information from the brain to the organ, different nerve. So you have sensory nerve and motor nerve, two different nerves. Okay. This is the brain. This is the spinal cord. And our body is very well organized. And we have very structured nerve in the spinal cord. Each nerve will be responsible to control and to sense specific region. So the spinal cord here, we have different region. Color coded is for to ease up understanding. So you have your spinal cord from C1 until C8. These are the bones, and the name of the nerves is given based on the bone location. And so you have cervix nerve, you have thoracic nerves, lumbar nerves in this region, sacral nerves, and the last nerve And the brain also has its own nerve, the cranial nerves. The brain in layman's term, we call it brain, but in scientific terms, we call it cranial. So the cranial nerves, there are 12 cranial nerves to control within the brain itself. From the 12 cranial nerves, only one nerve extends away from the brain, where this nerve is actually to control internal organs without your consciousness. And these nerves on the spinal cords are actually voluntary control. So you can control your hand, you can sit down, stand up with your willing. The unconscious controls, such as controlling your heart, controlling your respiratory system, digestive system, all the internal organs, you cannot say to your heart, stop beating. You cannot, your brain will control it. Even you say, I want to stop breathing, you still breathe. So during your sleep, your internal organ still functioning, your digestive system process the food and so on. So those are controlled by one of the cranial nerve. But we do not go in detail lah, but in this course we just learn in terms of what are the functions of the nervous system. Okay, this is a structure of a nerve. As I mentioned, a nerve is only conducting signals one way direction. So basic diagram of a nerve, it must have a cell body, and then the part that is conducting part, which is the axon part, and the transmitter part. And for those who learn about computers, neural network, the concept of artificial neural network, take example from the neural system. And this nerve can interact with another nerve. And from one nerve to another nerve, there will be synapse. Synapse is jumping of, so in this nerve, actually signals is conducted, the electrical signals pass through the nerves in terms of ionic charges, because your body comprised of ions, many ions. So movement of positive, negative charges allow electric movement. But in your electrical signals, you have electrons flow. So there you can compare electronic flow and ionic flows. So in the electrical system, we have electrons flow. So you call it electronic flow lah. Whereas in the body, we have ionic flow. Okay. And synapse is actually gap. So our nerve can pass the electric signals to the next nerves through the synapse. So changes will happen, electrical signals change to chemical, because synapse, in order for synapse to transmit electric signals to the next nerves, it has to convert into chemical, because we have transmitters and receivers. Those are the chemical receptors. Change to chemical and then change back to electrical within the nerves. So our body is designed by our creator in such a way that it is very fine and it happens very fast. Okay, such as that when you touch a hot object, you remove your hand from the hot object quite immediately, within few microseconds, as a mechanism to maintain your homeostasis. So if you touch the hot object for a long time, you may injure yourself. But we have a built-in memory where we know hot object is dangerous, it's not safe, you remove quickly. And it happens because of the nervous system detect the danger. So there you see the process of negative feedback occurring within the system to maintain the homeostasis. Okay, the second system, organ system that we have is the integumentary system, which is comprises of your skin, your hair, nails, and the sweat glands. These are actually protection system lah. You separate external from the internal body. And the purpose is for protection, to synthesize, also to synthesize vitamin D, because your skin has lots of cells that can convert vitamin D. This is from sunlight lah. And it also helps regulate body heat, because your skin has the hair. Your hair can stand during hot weather. Your hair can stand during cold weather, because when your hair stand, it creates a layer of air gap, thick air gap, and air is a good insulator, heat insulator. So you want to reduce excess heat. So you need to keep the heat, because during cold weather, siapa pernah mandi kolam lama, you rasa bulu roma berdiri kan? Berdiri because of air gap near the skin, to increase the air gap, so that the heat from the body do not expose off to the environment. You want to maintain your body heat, because your body temperature drops a little bit. So you need to minimize the loss of the heat through the environment. So you need to make your hair stand. But during hot weather, the hair become flat on the skin, so that you minimize the layer of air above the skin, so in order for you to access. And at the same time, the blood circulation underneath the skin will divert to the underneath of the skin, so that excessive heat can be exposed off to the environment, so that you avoid increase of body temperature. So that's why the skin is actually helping regulating body heat. Okay, the nail protects the fingers. The sweat glands help regulate the body temperature by producing the sweats. Okay, another thing, when you very hot, another mechanism to get rid of the excessive heat is sweating, because sweating causes evaporation. Evaporation will reduce the temperature. Okay, then the third organ system is the respiratory system, which is very important. It provides the body with fresh supply of oxygen for cellular respiration, and it also removes the waste product, especially the carbon dioxide. And the major organs for the respiratory system comprise of the nose, the pharynx, larynx, and trachea. All those are piping system that brings the air from the external to the internal respiratory system, which is your lung. The place where respiration actually takes place is actually inside the alveolus, which is the air bags in your lungs. Because at the alveolus, you have exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and the blood functions to combine oxygen and to let go of the carbon dioxide. Okay, the bronchi, the diaphragm is actually a muscle which has a dome shape, and the diaphragm functions to increase and decrease your thorax or your abdomen space, because our breathing process is actually happen mechanical breathing whereby when you inhale, your diaphragm will flatten or will contract, because originally the diaphragm which separates your above chest from the compartment in the below of your chest. So in the normal relaxed stage, diaphragm is dome shape. Dome meaning that very small space in the lungs, in the upper abdomen. So you have, when compact volume, so it has very high pressure inside the, so air is pushed out. So when your diaphragm contract, it becomes flattened because the shape dome is relaxed. When it contract, it becomes flat. So when it flat, it lowers, it moves lower. That makes the volume in the thorax above the diaphragm become enlarged. So the theory of a large volume, low pressure. So the external body, which is the atmospheric, having atmospheric pressure, maintain pressure, but now the thorax is drop in the pressure. So naturally, air moves from the high pressure area to the inside of the body through the lung, through the respiratory system, so that it allows breathing in. So the process repeats. So then it relaxes, diaphragm relax, and then contract again, so that you will have a natural breathing process. So you use very minimum energy to allow breathing takes place. Okay. And this is the structure of the respiratory system, where you have all those structure, the nasal, which is the breathing, but we have two alternative, the nasal passage and the mouth. The mouth can also act as breathing, part of the breathing, but breathing through the mouth is not very healthy. You need to have your nasal passage working to have a efficient breathing. So here you have your lungs, and the function of the lung is for gas exchange and oxygen, and this lung will interact with your heart, because the lung circulation, later on if you learn about a circulatory system, the blood circulation will interconnect from the lung to the circulatory system. Okay, then the digestive system. The purpose is to convert the food particles, because we need energy. So we get energy from food. So you need to take food, and the food has to be digested in order to obtain the energy from the food. So the purpose of the digestive system is to convert the food particles into simpler micromolecules that can be absorbed into the bloodstream and used by the body. So the major organs for the digestive system comprise of the mouth, which is the space that receives the food. Inside the mouth, you have your teeth, functions to chew and grind the food. And your mouth also, inside the mouth has salivary glands, and content of the salivary, of your saliva contains lots of enzymes that allows chemical breakdown of the food particles. Esophagus is the tract that bring food to the stomach, and the stomach is the food reservoir, where before your food taken can be digested, it is stored in the stomach, and the stomach can secretes hydrochloric acid to help break down the food. But the breaking down of the food is actually done by enzyme, because food, when you learn about food, you need to break down into small particles of absorbable units. The blood can only take glucose, simple carbohydrate. So the big chunk of food broken down into small particles with the help of enzymes should be broken into glucose, the end product of the food. Only glucose can be absorbed into the bloodstream, into the blood cells, because the blood cells carry oxygen and nutrients. And the nutrients are in terms of glucose and all other parts that we consume. Okay, and the process of breaking down is mixing with the digestive juices. The digestive juices are the enzymes, and the mixture is called the chyme. So in human physiology, there are many terminologies, but the terminology are specific to describe where it is, what it is. Okay, and in the digestive system, we have many structures. The pancreas, the liver, all have specific functions. Like for example, pancreas is produced to produce the hormone insulin that regulates the sugar level. It also helps neutralize the stomach acid and so on. The liver is important because it produces bile secretion, and this bile secretion is actually required to break down fat, because at the end, fat is in terms of lipid acid, and lipid acids can be broken into absorbable units also. Gallbladder is the pouch-like organ that stores the bile secretion for future use to digest the fat. The small intestine is the long tract in the body. The length of the intestine is about, on average, about 25 feet, which is very long because the digestion is a slow process. In order for you to completely digest food, it takes about 4 to 6 hours. So that's why you need to take food, you need to eat every 4 to 6 hours. After you eat, you feel full, so you don't feel hungry. But when your stomach is empty, it sends signals to the brain that your stomach is empty. Now you feel hungry. You want to eat. So those are interaction between the digestive system and the nervous system. Okay, the large intestine is a shorter part of the whole digestive system. The function of the large intestine is to remove the byproduct, the solid waste product. All parts of the food that cannot be digestible will have to be removed. So the large intestine store those and will excrete it, so that your body is not contaminated lah. But the large intestine also has factory for certain vitamins, like for example vitamin vitamin K12. It can produce that vitamin, which is also required by the body. Okay, this is the digestive system structure, where you have your mouth, esophagus, and esophagus is parallel to the trachea. Trachea is for breathing system. Esophagus is for digestive system. And it is sent to the stomach. Stomach will connect to the intestine. So the intestine, you have small intestine and large intestine. And here you have your pancreas, which secretes the bile secretion. And your liver, the gallbladder is connected within the liver. Okay. Next is the excretory system. To get rid of the body waste, including excess of water and salt. So your excretory system comprises of the kidneys and the rectum. Actually, the excretory skin is also part of excretory system. So the kidney is the main organs of the excretory system. Waste in terms of dissolved waste, uric acid diluted in the blood plasma can be excreted and become urine, so that you get rid of the urine through the help of the kidneys, because the kidney is actually the filter. Okay, and the urine is accumulated in the bladder, your urinary bladder, before it is expelled of the body. The rectum is to store the solid waste from food. So these are the excretory system, where you have your kidney and this urinary bladder. So you the digestive system, the rectum is not seen here. It only shows the kidney, bladder. At the back, there will be rectum for solid waste. The rectum is very small. It's not very clear here. Okay, then the skeletal system. The purpose is to provide structure and support to the human body itself. Skeletal system made of bones, and the bone is actually a factory for blood cells production, because inside the bone marrow is able to recycle blood cells and to produce new blood cells. And it requires minerals, calcium, for strength of the bone. Okay, so you have major bones of the human body, the thigh bones, the femur. These are all the scientific names. In the bracket is a layman's term describing the bone's name. You have the radius and ulna in the lower arm. You have the sternum, the breastbone, and the sternum is actually your chest bone that protect the internal organ, protect your heart, protect your lungs. Okay, and then at the lower limb, the calf, you have fibula and tibia. For your shoulder, you have bone named scapula, your tailbone, coccyx, and so on. Don't worry too much about the bones name, the scientific name, as long as you know in terms of the function. Because for you all engineers, you don't need to know the anatomy. You need to know about physiology. And the difference between physiology and anatomy is that physiology is understanding the functioning of the structure of the body, whereas anatomy is understanding the body structure, specific parts of the brain. For us engineers, we are more concerned regarding the physiology itself. But for medical doctors, they need to know both the anatomy and also the physiology. Because for medical doctors, they are treating people with illness. They should be able to differentiate normal function from abnormal function. That's why they need to know everything, the anatomy and physiology. But for us, we need to know the physiology. However, you cannot exactly remove the anatomy, because in order for you to be able to describe the physiology, somehow you need to know the structure also, at least the names, the location, then you can be able to describe the function. So somehow human anatomy and physiology are interrelated lah. But the focus for engineers are more of on the physiology itself. Okay, so this is the skeletal system, comprised of the bones. We have many bones, many short bones. The reason we have short bones is that it allows movement, fine movement. For example, in your hand, in your finger, you have many short bones which allow you to move your fingers precisely. If the bone is long, it's difficult to move. You cannot have fine movement. Okay, and then okay, the next system is muscular system, where we have muscle system. The purpose is muscles is always attached to the bones. So muscles work closely with the skeletal system. And the controller of the muscle is the nervous system. So we cannot avoid nervous system interact with the skeletal system and the muscular system. It allows movement. It helps circulate blood because the blood vessels comprise of circular muscles. Okay, in the blood vessels, the wall of the blood vessels comprise of muscles, so that the blood can constrict, can relax. But the muscles within a tube is not skeletal systems. The muscles, but there are muscles also. So the muscles that is in the blood vessels is called smooth muscles. Whereas skeletal muscles are muscles that attach to the bones. Muscles that are within the cardiovascular system is called cardiac muscles. So altogether, talking about muscles types, there are three kinds of muscles. Smooth muscles underlining a tube, whether blood vessels or the respiratory system. The respiratory system also has smooth muscles, a little bit lah, but mostly smooth muscles are present in the blood vessels. So in terms of the skeletal muscles, the name of the muscles are given based on the structure of the muscle itself. For example, you have biceps, triceps. These are the muscles that are in your arm. Because it has two lobules of muscles, you call it biceps. Triceps, because there are three lobules, so they call it triceps. Deltoids, when the shape of the muscle is like a triangle, like a delta. This deltoid is attached to the backbone and your shoulder bone, and it is called deltoid. Hamstring is the muscles in the lower leg. And this gluteus, I'm not sure where it is, but the others are common muscles, important for movement. Okay, and then the circulatory system, the next is the eighth organ system. Circulatory system is to deliver oxygenated blood to various cells and organ systems in your body so that they can undergo cellular respiration. And the major organs include the heart and the blood vessels, where the heart is actually the major muscle of the skeletal system. It pumps the blood through its 4 chambers. And when you learn about heart, you know heart is actually a mechanical pump where it has top part, bottom part, and the muscles of the heart contracts together. So the top part contract, push blood towards the bottom, and the bottom will contract, push simultaneously to the respiratory system and also to the systemic circulations, and then return back to the top of the heart, and then from the top push to the lower part of the heart. And it happens repetitively. So each heartbeat, you will have contraction of the heart, push from top to bottom, bottom to the rest, and then come back. And this happens every second. So that on average, you will have about 60 beats per minute. And the heart is actually to circulate the blood. And the heart actually pumps deoxygenated blood into the lungs, where it gets oxygenated by the respiratory system, and then return to the heart, and then pump back to through the aorta to the rest of the body. So we call the rest of the body as systemic circulation. So you will have respiratory circulation, and you will have systemic circulation. And within the heart itself, to separate between the top part of the heart and the bottom part of the heart, there will be valve. This valve regulate the blood flow between the chambers. And you have right heart and left heart, because the right side of the heart comprise of the blood that is less oxygen, because the atria, right atria, receives deoxygenated blood, but right ventricles will send the deoxygenated blood to the lungs, and from the lungs it returns to the atria of the left side. So the left atria receive oxygenated blood, push to the left ventricles, where the left ventricles will push the oxygenated blood towards the systemic circulation. So that's why you have right heart, left heart attached together, but the contraction together top, together bottom. So you need to have a separator between them to separate oxygenated blood from the deoxygenated blood. Okay, the arteries, and then the name of the vessels is given based on the functions. So blood vessels can be arteries, can be your veins, capillaries, and capillaries. So the blood vessels called arteries is the vessels that carry the blood away from the heart. And arteries are mostly, the wall of the arteries are muscular with the smooth muscle, because arteries need to be able to hold high pressure, because it brings the blood from the left ventricles towards the blood systemic circulation. And the veins is actually the blood vessels that carry the blood back to the heart. And normally veins are less muscular. It can extend. And the veins actually contains blood that is less oxygen, or the deoxygenated blood. Capillaries are the blood vessels that interconnect the arteries and the veins. And you have many capillaries underneath the skin. And these are the small vessels where gas exchange occurs in the lungs, and gas exchange also occurs at the cellular level. Okay, the blood is the cells that flow through the circulatory system. It contains hemoglobin in the blood, red blood cells. The hemoglobin is actually iron-rich protein. And hemoglobin functions to bind to the oxygen molecules. Okay, you need to have iron because iron is important for binding the oxygen to the hemoglobin. White blood cells functions for immune system to protect the body. And platelets is a component in the blood to help prevent loss of blood during cut. Your platelets will arrive to the site of injury and causes blood to clot. So that when clotting occur, it will block the blood from flowing outside of the body because you need to maintain the volume, blood volume. Okay, the spleen is an organ. Actually, it helps to filter out toxins in the body. So in terms of the structure of the circulatory system, we have the heart, the lungs as the respiratory system. And you always see textbook give color through the color to the vessels. So the blue is deoxygenated blood, the red is oxygenated blood. And you see here the heart, right side is deoxygenated blood, left side of the heart is oxygen-rich blood. And you will have circulation to the upper part of the body and circulation to the bottom part of the body. And it is very unique. And you will see here, capillaries are present between the arteries and the vein. So the blue are the arteries, the red are the blue are the veins, the red are the arteries, based on function. Okay, then you have the endocrine system, where the endocrine system is actually for hormone system. Another name for endocrine is hormone system, where we have its function is to control the growth, development, metabolism, and reproduction through the production and secretion of hormones. So for the major organs, these are the organs within the endocrine system. These organs actually the factory to produce specific hormones. Hypothalamus for emotion, pituitary gland for growth, thyroid gland, parathyroid, adrenal glands, all those are endocrine system. It is located throughout the body. And it has no specific track. It will secrete the hormones through the blood circulation, so that the circulatory system will carry the secretion from these glands. And the endocrine system is like a chemical system, because hormones have chemicals within it. The hormones contain the chemicals that can influence the nervous system to change actions towards the organ system. The reproductive system is the mechanism for continuity of human life and species by producing offspring. And the reproductive system as gender specific. Like for example, the reproductive system for male is different from the female, but they are complementary with each other. The male reproductive systems require female reproductive system in order to produce the offspring or the next generation. And then the immune system, the last system is the immune system, where it provides surveillance and defense system against harmful organisms and chemicals of the body. It also return tissue fluid to the bloodstream, provide transport of fats and the digestive tracts to the bloodstream. The immune system uses lymphatic vessels to secrete the defense systems there. So you have many lymph nodes all over the body itself. So as a summary, the 11th system, you should be able to identify the organs within the system and the function of each of the system. This is just more of your basic knowledge of the human body. Okay, because when we learn about the heart, each of the organ system has its own signal. For example, the heart have electrocardiogram. In order for us to monitor the cardiovascular system working correctly or not, we observe ECG signals. We have, in order for us to monitor the brain working correctly or not, we can monitor the electroencephalogram, the EEG signals. Okay, and we also have photoplasmogram signal, PPG signal. It is actually related to circulatory signals and also the heart, because the heart is working closely to the brain to pump the blood circulation. We have muscular skeletal system. We can also monitor electromyogram. So those are biosignals. So in this course, we are more focused on the biosignal itself and how we can obtain the biosignals and utilize the biosignals to help maintain good health. So that's why in the first lectures, I always introduce this complex basics of human physiology for general knowledge lah for you all. Okay, I hope you can follow me. So that's about it for this first lecture. So don't get too scared with the terminologies. I tried to explain as simple as possible so that everybody can follow me, even for those who do not have science background. Okay, and then let me check. Oh, the same students, about 16 to 17 students in the class. So any questions? Ada apa-apa soalan yang spesifik nak tanya? You can always ask.
Tak ada kot.
Tak ada, so boleh faham lah. Ataupun boringnya lah.
Boleh faham, Dr. Rasmina boleh.
So if I
boleh faham.
increase the volume, yeah. Ada yang tanya ni? Signal is about biology? Is the body system going to come out in exam? Not exactly, but it's the foundation of biosignal. In order for us to know about the signal, you need to know the origin of the signal. So that's why in the first lecture, I always explain about the human physiology in general.
Assalamualaikum, Doktor. Doktor,
Ya, ya.
saya Husna, saya ada soalan.
Ya.
Just now Doktor ada cakap engineering relate to physiology. What is mean by physiology, Doktor? Can you explain in detail?
Physiology is function. Learning about the function of something. The term physiology is learning the functioning. Anatomy is learning on the structure itself.
So in this first lecture, we are not go deep into the system, human system, Doktor.
We learn about the human system and the focus is more on the physiology itself. But as I said just now, we cannot take off the anatomy totally because we still need to know a little bit of the names, the structure, where it is. So somehow we have learned also the anatomy, but not in detail lah.
So later on nanti we have to relate on engineering and signal and so on, Doktor.
Ya, betul.
Okay, thank
Because
you.
your scope of study is the biosignal, processing of the biosignal, how you obtain the biosignal, identify the noise from the biosignal, remove the noise, manipulate the signals. Then you can interpret the signals. And our signals come from living cells. And it has many information in the biosignals. As we described in this lecture, the body is complex. We have many organ system in a biosignal. For example, in the ECG signal, you have information regarding the heart. You also have information regarding the brain, because the brain controls the rhythm of the heart beating. So if you do signal processing on the ECG signal, you can extract information of the brain, because there are methods how you can process the signals. You can do time series analysis, you can do frequency analysis. So the hidden signals within the ECG signals actually origins from many organs of the body. Because the body is comprises of many organ systems that interact with each other. That's why the signal has built in many signals inside it. But of course, the ECG has the outstanding signals from the heart. But within the signal itself, there are signals of the brain, signals of the respiratory system also. Because when you process, you especially when you analyze the frequency, you can extract frequency of the breathing. You can extract the very low frequency of the brain control. Our biosignals contain rich information. Same with other signals, the EEG signals, the brain signals, it has mainly or the major signals comes from the brain. So you would expect it describes the behavior of the brain, but then it also has other signals inside it, but it's not obvious. Interesting to learn about the signals So actually in this course, you just learn very basic of it. For detail, you need to do research lah. Like you do your master, focus on one specific area, then you can dig further and further. Faham? I hope I can explain what the question about. Any other questions? Can you give an example of research done by electrical engineering regarding biosignals? Oh, banyak. Maybe yang paling obvious, ECG and ECG analysis, EEG analysis. ECG stand for electrocardiogram. It is the electrical signals of the heart. You place electrodes on the chest, you are actually getting the electric signals from the heart. And then the brain signal, EEG, electroencephalogram, which is the signal of the brain. It's also getting the signal because the concepts of obtaining the signal, you need to have two electrodes. The electrodes are actually the conductor, electrical conductor, and you know your body conduct currents, very small current, because if you put two point, one on the surface of the body, another one inside the body, and you amplify that, you can see there is a voltage drop. It's about negative 60 millivolts. So it shows when there is a potential difference, there is a movement of charges, and these charges are actually within the due to the ionic current. So based on these concepts, these are the electrical engineers' work, and it expands. And the function of electrical engineers, they help medical doctors to analyze signals. Medical doctors, their concerns are to help people with illnesses. They use electrical tools. The work of biomedical engineers actually bridging the medical doctors to the engineers. Engineers knows about electrical signal and many equipment in the hospitals are actually using electrical appliances, but the doctor do not concern about the theories behind the electrical appliances, but they are using it. So these biomedical engineers are having the responsibility to help the medical doctor to interpret the signals, to able to obtain the signals for diagnosis, for monitoring, and so on. So when talking about example of research done by electrical engineering, there are many, so many. Okay, any other questions? Yeah. Okay then, if not, I shall leave you all. By the way, Thursday is short class. I tried my best to have like sharing session on biosignal. The first biosignal we will touch is PBG signals. Very interesting. So until then, see you all on Thursday. So thank you guys. Later on, okay, let me put